Merci. Merci, mes amis. OK. On a du travail à faire. Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I want to mention, of course, that we are closely monitoring Hurricane Lee as it bears down on Atlantic Canada. Federal agencies are fully engaged and working with our Atlantic provincial partners. And I want to remind everyone to listen to updates from authorities and be there for each other, as Atlantic Canadians always are, during the tough times that we're facing this coming weekend. It is so great to be back here in London, here in southwestern Ontario. Our team has been having constructive conversations and talking about what we need to do to keep delivering for Canadians. We're ready for the return of Parliament. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and ready to keep working hard. Our focus is the same as it's always been, fighting for the middle class and people working hard to join it. We're here in a part of Canada that has seen tremendous growth over the past years. From Volkswagen's generational investment in nearby St. Thomas, where it'll build its first overseas electric battery gigafactory, to construction of the Gordie Howe International Bridge at the border in Windsor, to growth in communities all the way through southwestern Ontario, we're continuing to focus on creating great jobs for Canadians now and into the future. This is a part of Canada where people are proud to work hard and build the things that Canada and the world needs. A part of Canada that has always proudly celebrated its working-class roots. Now, it's no different from a lot of places across this country. And the people here are facing a lot of the same challenges as in the rest of Canada, the biggest one being the rising cost of living. Au cours de la dernière année, on a offert du soutien ciblé pour aider les gens avec l'inflation. Le rabais pour l'épicerie et le crédit supplémentaire pour la TPS. D'autres mesures comme les garderies abordables et l'augmentation de la sécurité de la vieillesse. Mais il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire pour la classe moyenne. The most expensive cost for people these days is housing. And the best way to tackle this is to make sure more homes of all types are being built. Yesterday, I announced how the City of London is going to be building more homes faster with the help of the federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund. And today, I'm announcing another big piece of our plan to build more housing. Now, more and more Canadians are renting, and the cost of rent keeps going up. Canadians need more buildings intended for renters, not just condos that turn into Airbnbs that are sold to foreign buyers as financial assets. So, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be removing the federal GST for the construction of new apartment buildings, and I'm encouraging all provinces to do the same. This plan is going to get more apartments built in big cities, in small towns, especially along transit lines, and they'll make sure that there are units with 2 or 3 or even more bedrooms, the kinds of places families can live and grow. Cette mesure s'ajoute à tout le travail qu'on a déjà fait et qui nous a permis d'aider près de 2 millions de Canadiens à se trouver un chez-soi au cours des dernières années. Et on va faire d'autres annonces bientôt là-dessus aussi. Because all of us have to do more, as governments, as builders, as partners, while we create thriving communities. Minister Fraser is leading the federal government's efforts, but we're doing this as an entire team. MPs are a critical part of this work, and we will all be relentless in our efforts and use every tool in our toolbox to meet this generational challenge. Every community across Canada needs to build more homes faster so we can lower the cost of housing for everyone. Les Canadiens voient une augmentation de bien des prix ces jours-ci, surtout quand vient le temps de visiter l'épicerie. Le taux d'inflation a diminué, mais la facture est encore trop élevée pour la nourriture. Mais pendant ce temps-là, les grandes chaînes d'épicerie font des profits records. Ces profits-là ne devraient pas se faire sur le dos des gens qui en arrachent pour nourrir leur famille. It's not okay that our biggest grocery stores are making record profits while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table. So Minister Champagne will be calling on the heads of large grocers to come to Ottawa with a plan to address the rising cost of food. And we expect to hear from them by Thanksgiving on what their plan is to stabilize prices. And let me be very clear. If their plan doesn't provide real relief for the middle class and people working hard to join it, then we will take further action, and we are not ruling anything out, including tax measures. Now, businesses should be competing for your business, not unfairly profiting from it. So we're also taking the first steps to reform the Competition Act and make large businesses more accountable to Canadians. This is just another way we're fighting for the middle class to get a fair deal and creating new opportunities for small businesses. Speaking of small businesses, during the pandemic, we provided emergency loans to almost 1 million small businesses in our communities. While many have paid these loans back, we know that some need a bit more runway, so we're extending the CEBA loan repayment deadline by a year. Nos petites entreprises vont avoir plus de temps pour rembourser le compte d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes, ce qui va aussi aider les travailleurs et les consommateurs. Les Canadiens ont fait face à plusieurs défis au cours des dernières années. Notre gouvernement a été là pour aider, et c'est ce qu'on va continuer à faire. The promise of Canada is about every generation reaching even higher than the previous one. Our job as a government, as a team, is to secure that promise. And today's announcement are just another step in that work. It's one more way that this team, this government, is helping build an economy that works for everyone and building a better future for Canada. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. A good-looking group.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Thank you, Prime Minister. We will now move over to questions from the media. We have 20 minutes. Nous avons 20 minutes pour les questions des médias, et on va commencer avec Marika Walsh.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Your government, or you as the third-place party in 2015, said that you as government would remove the GST from new rental construction and renovations. You broke that promise in your first mandate. Now, 8 years later, after saying that it wasn't evidence-based and wasn't needed, you're saying it is. Why should voters still stick with you over this?
In 2015, we made the commitment to remove GST on purpose-built housing, and we looked at how and what that would have an impact back in 2016, and we decided that building the RCFI, the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, would be a better way of getting things done in the context where they are right now. And that program has led to about 40,000 units being created across the country and led to affordable financing for people building purpose-built construction units. It was the right program at the time, and that's exactly what we did, and it continues. But now, given interest rates where they are, given the challenges that people have in building new apartment buildings, we realize it's the right time to step up with removing the federal GST on purpose-built apartment buildings And we're calling on provinces, and we've heard already from a number of provinces that are going to do just that, and we will see GST and PST, or HST, eliminated from a large number of apartment building constructions across the country, which will help significantly reach millions of people into thousands of people into getting new apartments.
And on I hope the clapping doesn't take away from our question time. On the grocery orders that you're putting in place, can you be more clear? It seems like you're just asking for cooperation right now. What specifically is your government considering if you don't see that cooperation from the grocery stores? Will you put orders in place?
I have to begin by thanking the hardworking MPs behind me who have made sure that grocery store CEOs of the big grocers were called into Ottawa to explain how they're making record profits while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table. We know there is more they can do, that they must do to keep food more affordable for Canadians. And that's why we're giving them an opportunity to come to Ottawa by Thanksgiving and tell us exactly what they're going to do to stabilize food prices across this country and ideally start bringing them down. We are confident that they will be able to come up with a strong plan to support Canadians. If they don't or are unable to, then yes, the federal government will take action, and we're not taking anything off the table. But I am confident that those large grocery leaders who are making record profits are going to step up for people in their communities from coast to coast to coast.
Judy Trin, CTV News. Prime Minister, in this idea that you're bringing forth today, this measure is from 2015. Yesterday's measure was a policy from 2018 that was in the budget. 2022 that was in the budget. So these delays would appear of your own making. The fact that you have fallen behind in double digits in the polls to the Conservatives, is that something that you need to take ownership of, because you have delayed these measures that would have made life affordable for Canadians much earlier?
I think what Canadians understand is that the housing crisis requires everyone to work together. It requires provinces to step up. It requires municipalities to step up. We need to draw in the private sector as important parts of building housing, which is what removing the GST from purpose-built rental housing or apartment buildings is all about. We need to draw in the public sector, the not-for-profit sector, and see it continuing to succeed. So having these conversations and making sure we're building the right solutions for Canadians right now is what Canadians expect of an evidence-based government that is looking at the data and is responding with real solutions to real challenges. But for further discussion on housing, I'm happy to turn it over to Minister Fraser, who will talk about all the programs we're doing and why it takes time to build the right programs for Canadians. Sean.
Look, thanks very much for the question. I think one of the things that you've got to understand is that as circumstances change, so too must our response change. If you look at the circumstances we were dealing with after the 2015 election, as the Prime Minister alluded to, we thought we could get a better return on our investment through the rental construction financing initiative. There's been factors that have shifted over the course of the pandemic and since that have made it more expensive to build the kinds of homes that people can actually afford. By actually moving forward with removing the federal GST at this point in time, we're going to change the equation, and it's going to grow supply immensely across this country, but it's also going to change the kinds of homes that people build. We're going to see more apartments go up instead of condominiums that will be rented out or held onto without somebody living in them. And we tend to see that apartments rent for a couple $100 less every month than their comparative condominium that goes up. This is a good deal, and I should say that already since news has broken that this is something we're going to be doing. I've received messages from Minister Calandra in Ontario indicating they're going to follow suit. I've received messages from Minister Callan and Premier Eby in British Columbia indicating they'll do the same. And just recently I've received a message from Premier Fury in Newfoundland and Labrador saying they're also going to do the same thing in order to reduce the cost of building. Federal leadership can drive change at provincial levels and municipal levels, and we're going to play that leadership role to help solve Canada's national housing crisis. Thank you.
Prime Minister, you are in London, an MP for this area, is a woman of color, 32 years old, a single mother. Her lived experience in an interview with CTV News has now been used in an attack ad by the Conservatives. What does this show you about their game plan, and how are you going to counteract that?
Well, first of all, there's always going to be room for political debate, and that's what political parties are always engaged in. But what we're focused on right now is how we're going to deliver for Canadians. Canadians don't want to see politicians arguing back and forth. They want to see us rolling up our sleeves and delivering them the kinds of housing, the kinds of supports, the kind of aid on groceries and on competition and on small businesses that we're announcing today. This is just a start. We've got a lot to do. This is a government that has always been there for Canadians to invest in a growing economy that works for everyone, invest in having Canadians' backs through difficult times, and we're going to keep acting. It's always important to have good debates, and the other parties are bringing that, but it's important as well that Canadians see real action, and that's what this government's delivering.
Next question.
Amy Simon, Global News. Prime Minister, should Canadians expect that you will be announcing additional housing measures on top of the GST rebate today?
We are definitely going to be announcing more on housing. We know that there is no single silver bullet on fixing housing. That's why we've done everything from bring forward a tax-free savings account in the last budget that made a huge difference. We're cracking down on predatory practices in the industry. We're moving forward on increasing supply with the Housing Accelerator. We've seen 3 rounds already of the rapid housing strategy that has put up thousands of units right across the country. But there is no one simple solution, and that's why we continue to roll up our sleeves, work with partners like municipalities, nonprofit sector, provinces, and we're going to continue doing that. Housing is a massive challenge and even a crisis, but it's a crisis that Canada has solved before, and it's one that we are going to solve again by working together.
And Prime Minister, grocery companies have been taking in record profits for multiple years now. Why have you not moved to act sooner to try and bring these grocery prices down?
We have taken action. We've taken significant action with the grocery rebate earlier this year that landed in the pockets of 11 million Canadians who are struggling with the high costs of living. We've continued to have our MPs call grocery CEOs to committee to explain themselves, and we're now turning to them to make sure that they put a concrete plan forward by Thanksgiving to stabilize and lower grocery prices across the country, because it does not make sense in a country like Canada that our largest grocery chain should be making record profits while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table, and we're seeing record usage of food banks.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, Raymond Filion de TVA. Monsieur le Premier ministre, je voudrais vous entendre en français sur le fait que votre annonce d'aujourd'hui, c'est une promesse non tenue de 2015. Il y a lieu de penser que la crise du logement serait peut-être moins pire aujourd'hui au Canada si vous aviez tenu promesse il y a 8 ans. Est-ce que vous regrettez de ne pas l'avoir fait à ce moment-là?
Je pense que les gens comprennent très bien que la situation qu'on vivait il y a 8 ans était différente de celle qu'on est en train de vivre aujourd'hui. Et oui, on avait effectivement fait cet engagement d'éliminer la TPS sur les constructions de logements de meubles à appartements, de bâtisses à appartements, mais on a regardé et on a décidé que le programme qu'on a établi, le RCFI, était mieux approprié pour les conditions et la situation dans laquelle on a été. Et ça a été un programme extrêmement réussi. Jusqu'à présent, ça a créé près de 40 000 nouveaux appartements à travers le pays et ça continue de fonctionner. Mais ces jours-ci, on est en train de voir qu'il y a bien des développeurs, des gens en construction qui ne vont pas de l'avant avec des constructions de nouveaux blocs à appartements parce que les coûts sont trop élevés et d'enlever la TPS et de souligner qu'il y a déjà 3 provinces qui ont dit qu'ils vont faire pareil avec leur parti, on va voir la création d'énormément de nouveaux appartements dans les années à venir.
Un dossier qui est lié à la crise du logement, c'est celui de l'itinérance. On apprend que le nombre d'itinérants au Québec a bondi de 44 %. Il y en a 10 000 au moins dans la province. Vous êtes au pouvoir depuis 8 ans maintenant. Sentez-vous un degré de responsabilité par rapport à ce qui se passe actuellement?
Les actions que ce gouvernement a prises au fil des années ont réduit la pauvreté, les taux de pauvreté au Canada de façon significative. On a sorti près d'1 million de personnes de la pauvreté. Mais en même temps, on sait qu'avec la pandémie, avec la crise économique que les gens sont en train de vivre, on a besoin d'avoir plus d'aide. C'est pour ça qu'on a doublé nos investissements de 2 milliards jusqu'à 4 milliards de dollars pour nos initiatives pour contrer l'itinérance. On va continuer d'être là, évidemment, pour travailler avec les municipalités et les provinces pour résoudre ce problème, parce que ce n'est pas quelque chose qu'aucun palier de gouvernement peut faire tout seul, mais nous, on est là pour être partenaires avec le gouvernement du Québec, avec les municipalités à travers le pays, pour continuer à aider les gens qui se retrouvent sans abri.
Next question.
Dylan Robertson of the Canadian Press. On the grocery pledge, we know that various levels of the supply chain form a huge part of grocery prices. So why are you not including suppliers, manufacturers, and transporters in these price stabilization measures?
Well, part of why we're calling on the heads of the large grocery chains is that they have the best view of the different aspects that are going into the grocery supply chain. And working with them and ensuring that they put forward a concrete plan that's going to help Canadians is actually a way of drawing in the people who know the most about it to focus on helping Canadians. But on that, I'm happy to turn to a minister who's going to be leading this charge, who's already been in touch very closely with a number of the heads of the large grocery chains, François-Philippe, our Minister of Science, Innovation and Industry.
Merci. Thank you. Well, I think what the Prime Minister is saying and what we're saying to them is enough is enough. You know, it's always a good time to fight for Canadians. It's always a good time to fight for lower prices. We're going to start next week, by the way. So this is something that is happening right now. As the Prime Minister said, we're going to start with the 5 largest grocers in Canada. They represent about 80% of the market. And we're going to be in solution mode with very clear deadline and very clear outcome for Canadians. And together, we're going to look also at large food processors. You know, you have to see what's being done, for example, in France with Carrefour. I've been looking at their model, looking at what they've been doing. And certainly, we're going to be looking at international experience, our G7 partners. But I think you see the sentiment is that Canadians expect us to take decisive action. And this is actually going to help to lower price inflation you see in Canada, and we'll have more to say after the meeting next week with the CEOs.
Follow-up, Dylan?
Sure, the clapping really cuts into the time. Does the grocery pledge only... Seriously. Does the grocery pledge only include Loblaw, Metro, and Empire, or is it the big 5, including Costco and Walmart? And how are independent grocers expected to compete when they have less power to negotiate with suppliers?
Listen, exactly as you said. So the big 5 represent 80% of the market. And the reason why we want to sit with them exactly because they're not exactly in the same position in the market. As you know, Loblaws is far more integrated than some of the others. So there's not like necessarily one solution fit all, but the demand that we're going to put, and obviously they heard from the Prime Minister, and the invitation has been sent already. It's not an invitation. We told them to be in Ottawa next week. That's pretty clear. And we're going to be working with them, and you heard from now to Thanksgiving, we want to see meaningful action that are going to be taken. And the Prime Minister has been very clear, and I talked to the Minister of Finance. You know, if they fail to act, there will be consequences. But we'll give them a chance. You've seen me on the telco side. We're going to take the same model. We're going to bring them in Ottawa, talk to them around meaningful action, and if they fail to do so, there will be consequences.
Prochaine n'a pas assez d'autorité, je pense, pour faire arrêter les applaudissements. Je pense que M. Champagne a mentionné la France comme modèle. Est-ce que le modèle de la France qui a imposé un gel forcé sur des milliers d'aliments, c'en est un qui est envisagé, qui vous intéresse?
Bien, comme on a dit, On va travailler avec les grandes épiceries pour regarder ce qui fonctionne pour le Canada. C'est sûr qu'on peut regarder à travers le monde qu'est-ce qui fonctionne ailleurs, mais de savoir comment ça va traduire au Canada, il faut faire attention. On est ouvert à toutes sortes de solutions, comme François-Philippe a dit, on est en mode solution, mais on s'attend tout d'abord à s'asseoir avec les experts, les responsables, pour développer un plan. Et si ce plan qui finissent par nous présenter est inadéquat, bien, on va prendre des mesures de plus, mais on n'est pas rendu là encore.
Quand vous dites qu'il faut faire attention, pouvez-vous juste élaborer sur quoi exactement il faut faire attention? Puis une intervention comme ça de l'État, qu'est-ce que ça fait du principe du libre marché?
Bien, d'abord, vous avez tout à fait raison. J'aime votre question, c'est-à-dire, ce qu'on veut voir, c'est des réductions, on veut voir une réduction sur l'inflation, sur le prix des aliments, mais vous avez tout à fait raison, on veut s'assurer que ça ne soit pas traduit vers les petits épiciers, par exemple, vers les employés, vers les plus petits producteurs. Ça, c'est clair. C'est pour ça qu'on dit que la formule qui a été mise en France, vous savez évidemment le modèle Carrefour, vous avez fait un papier là-dessus, ça fonctionne dans certains cas. Comme on sait au Canada, le marché est différent, il y a l'Oblast puis il y a les autres parce que la structure organisationnelle est différente. Mais c'est pour ça qu'on va les amener ici à Ottawa pour prendre des mesures. Puis exactement comme le premier ministre disait, quelle forme ça va prendre? Bien, ça va prendre en compte la structure de marché qu'on a au Canada. Et ensemble, on va développer des méthodes parce qu'il y a aussi ce qu'on appelle la réduflation. Je pense que vous avez vu où on voit, par exemple, qu'on a réduit la quantité dans des mêmes, dans les mêmes boîtes qu'on retrouve. Si vous prenez, par exemple, dans les pâtes ou dans les céréales. Et l'autre chose, il y a la qualiflation aussi. On voit que la qualité des aliments a été affectés. Donc, je vais travailler avec le docteur Charlebois, que vous connaissez, de Dalhousie, puis certainement, on va arriver avec une politique qui va faire du sens pour le Canada.
Prochaine question.
Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. Monsieur Trudeau, Monsieur Poilievre, aujourd'hui, vous a accusé de changer d'idée, de faire volte-face sur la question de la TPS parce que lui, de son côté, il annonçait la même chose ou quelque chose de similaire. Qu'est-ce que vous lui répondez?
Juste pour que je sois bien aligné là-dessus, il y a eu deux questions qui me blâmaient parce que ça fait depuis 2015 qu'on a cette idée-là. Et ensuite, aujourd'hui, M. Poilievre dit que c'est une nouvelle idée qu'on arrive. C'est un peu du n'importe quoi. Et écoutez, comme j'ai dit, il y a toujours de la place pour des bons débats politiques. Mais ce qui compte pour les Canadiens, ce n'est pas les débats politiques, c'est les solutions. C'est les mesures concrètes qu'on va prendre pour aider les gens. Et c'est exactement ce qu'on est en train de faire. Ça fait 8 ans qu'on est là pour aider les Canadiens avec des investissements qui ont fait croître l'économie, qui ont aidé les familles, qui ont aidé les aînés. Et maintenant, on est dans un moment où les Canadiens en arrachent, particulièrement par rapport au logement, par rapport au coût de l'épicerie. On est en train de prendre des actions concrètes pour aider les Canadiens. Et si M. Poilievre veut nous applaudir, bien, on l'encourage à nous applaudir.
Êtes-vous prêt à réitérer l'aide ponctuelle de 500 $ au loyer que vous aviez versé l'an dernier?
C'était une aide spécifique qui s'ajoutait à l'aide qu'on a déjà par l'allocation canadienne pour le logement. On va toujours être là pour regarder comment aider les gens qui en ont besoin, mais on sait que l'important maintenant, c'est d'accroître l'offre du logement. Mais comme j'ai dit, ce n'est pas la seule annonce qu'on va faire dans les semaines à venir sur le logement. On va continuer de regarder les meilleures façons d'aider les gens qui en arrachent.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau. Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. Sur la question de la TPS, comment est-ce que vous allez vous assurer que ce rabais de 5 % se retrouve dans les poches des locataires? Est-ce que vous allez obliger les promoteurs à donner l'argent, à réduire le loyer des locataires?
C'est un rabais ou on enlève la TPS pour la construction de blocs à appartements. C'est pour s'assurer qu'on construise plus de bâtisses pour les locataires. Donc, quand les édifices vont être construits, les promoteurs, les développeurs vont pouvoir avoir cet argent. Ça fait partie du calcul nécessaire quand les gens vont décider est-ce que oui ou non, ils vont bâtir des blocs à appartements. C'est à ce niveau-là que ça fonctionne. Mais on a d'autres mesures pour aider les locataires. On a d'autres mesures, dont l'allocation canadienne pour les locataires, qui aident avec les coûts des loyers. Mais cette mesure-ci, c'est vraiment pour augmenter l'offre d'appartements à travers le pays.
Donc, je comprends qu'il n'y aura pas d'obligation. D'ici la prochaine élection, disons que c'est en 2025, combien de nouveaux logements vous voulez voir construits au Canada? Pouvez-vous me donner un chiffre?
Je vais passer la parole au ministre du Logement parce que c'est justement une question dont on a beaucoup discuté.
Oui. Can I just get a specific number by 2025? Combien de nouveaux logements? How many new houses, buildings built in Canada? Target.
Ce n'est pas possible pour clarifier exactement parce qu'il y a des pressions dans le marché, les facteurs qui changent après des semaines, après des mois, après des années. Mais quand nous avons l'opportunité pour avancer des mesures, c'est possible pour augmenter le nombre dans une façon significative. We can't put an exact number on exactly how many homes will be constructed because there's many market forces that go well beyond the government policy. But my expectation is that we're going to see many thousands of homes. There's estimates just in the GTA that this one measure could potentially lead to 120,000 new units over 10 years in one part of the country. This is also going to depend on what supplementary measures other levels of government put in place. So there's many factors that we know are going to impact the exact number of homes, but this is a transformational shift in the way that we're going to build homes in this country and attack the direct problem that developers are experiencing by not being able to build units at prices people can afford given the cost pressures they've been facing in recent months.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. The housing crisis has been on your radar for years. So what do you say to those who say you're not acting fast enough and decisively enough to deal with the issue? And how much of what you're announcing today is to appease your own caucus?
This is about Canadians. This is about the people that I've met across the country. It's about the people our MPs have spent the summer talking with who are worried about paying rent, about finding an apartment, about being able to buy a home. This is something that all Canadians are worried about. And it's something that we made a decision in 2015 we would reverse from the previous Conservative government that got out of the business of housing in this country. We know that housing is a challenge that takes decades to address, and having a decade in which a Conservative government did next to nothing on housing has long-term impacts. So in 2015, yes, we made direct commitments around housing, and we developed the RCFI, the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, that has delivered tens of thousands of new units across the country. We moved forward in 2017 with the National Housing Strategy, worth over $70 billion, that has made a significant impact in helping 2 million Canadians find new homes, find places to live. But we know that there is more to do. That's what we're announcing today, like we announced in the last budget with the Housing Accelerator Fund, like the announcements we're going to be making in the coming weeks to do even more to help Canadians with the high cost of housing.
Last question, dernière question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. Prime Minister Trudeau, questions have been raised about your ability to lead the Liberal Party. Why are you still the best person to lead the party and the government?
We are, as a team, united and focused on solving the big challenges that Canadians are facing. What we're announcing today on housing, on help on groceries, on more competition to support consumers, on help for small businesses, is part of the things that we've been doing over the past 8 years and are going to continue to do. Canadians are struggling right now, and we're going to be there, as we always have been, to have people's backs, to invest in the kinds of things that both support Canadians and grow the economy at the same time. I am so pleased to be part of this team that I have with me here today that are totally focused on building a better future for Canadians every single day.
Thank you. That will conclude today's press conference. Merci, ça va mettre la fin à la conférence de presse.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you all. Thank you, guys.